On this week's show, we sit down with two of this year's Capstone lecturers, Professor William Hudson of Providence College and New York Times columnist Ross Douthat. We have an interview with the editor-in-chief of the 136 Lawrence Board. We'll take a look at Lawrenceville's annual Revisit Day, and the entire school community heads to the Big Red Farm. Lawrenceville's 10-minute newscast begins right now. From the studios inside the Lawrenceville School's historic Pop Hall, this is L10 with Ghael, Fobes. Hello and welcome to our first show for the spring term. Next fall, English Department Chair Lori Perry will be leaving Lawrenceville to take the position of Assistant Headmaster at Blair Academy. Perry says that while she is excited to make the move to Blair, she knows that she will be homesick for Lawrenceville and feels very lucky to have belonged to a community that means the world to her. Former CEO of Salmon Brothers and class of 1947 alumnus John Gutfreund passed away on March 9th. He transformed Salmon Brothers from a private partnership into a publicly traded corporation, and he is considered an icon in investment banking. In 1985, Businessweek gave him the nickname the King of Wall Street. At Lawrenceville, he was a member of the Glee Club, periwig, and played on the varsity tennis and basketball teams, and lived in Hamel House. On March 4th, Lawrenceville honored several faculty and staff members for their service to the community. Recipients of the highest awards include Lillian Gibbons of Dining Services and Alex Mazzari of Facilities. Since 1990, the Colbert Capstone program has provided fifth formers the opportunity to apply some of their critical thinking, writing, and discussion skills to topics of contemporary relevance, from post-Katrina New Orleans to global warming and religion and politics. The Capstone program hosts nationally known experts as weekly lecturers, all of whom help offer a diverse range of theories on the program's yearly study. This year's focus is the 2016 election. Our correspondent Alex Small had the opportunity to interview two of this year's speakers, New York Times columnist Ross Douthat and Providence political science professor William Hudson.
Professor Hudson, this election has, of course, been unlike something we've ever really seen before. And some names have been made for themselves out of relative obscurity. One of those candidates, of course, is Bernie Sanders, and he's extremely popular among young voters. And I know in your novel you discuss creating very thoughtful constituents, especially college and younger aged voters. Do you think that the Bernie fever, especially with popularity among younger voters, do you think that's legitimate or well-reasoned, or do you think it's an impulse sort of mad at the government?
I don't think Bernie's voters are mad at the government. I think they are, I think he's tapped into issues that a lot of young people are concerned about. Concerned about economic inequality, concerned about being able to pay college tuition. He's done a very good job, I think, of crafting a campaign that appeals to a lot of young people. Also, I think young people are more open to sort of his more radical vision of America. One thing we know about the so-called millennials is that they are very, very far to the left. That was a constituency that strongly supported Barack Obama, and this wave of people coming along, I think, are attracted to the notion that maybe the economic system isn't working out so well.
Mr. Douthat, at such a critical juncture in the Republican primaries, where do you see the state of the Republican Party, and where do you see it going in the future?
The state of the Republican Party is just pretty much a disaster. Basically you have a completely bizarre situation where Donald Trump has almost succeeded in executing what you really would call a kind of hostile takeover of, which is, something that maybe he specializes in, but a hostile takeover of the party where he has about 35 to 38% of the primary vote, but his opposition has been so divided and incompetent, and the leadership of the party has been so divided and incompetent that he is potentially on track to get the nomination despite never breaking 40% in terms of overall support. He's broken it in specific states and so on. So what that means is you have a potential Republican nominee who is disliked by most of the people who matter in the party, who is disliked by many of the party's voters, and who is incredibly unpopular in the country as a whole, but who also has this incredibly intense and passionate base of support. And so the party has this huge dilemma where you either end up with Donald Trump as your nominee, which is probably a political disaster, arguably a moral disaster, and so on, or you fight him and beat him at the convention, which is still, I think, a quite likely outcome, but that then leaves him storming around the country telling his supporters not to vote Republican in the fall. So it's a big mess. And I really, it'll shake out long-term in some sense with the party adapting in some sense to what's happened with him. But in the short term, there aren't any good options for Republicans.
Thank you, Alex. The extended version of both interviews can be found on the school's YouTube channel. Last Thursday night, a new group of 4-formers entered POP for what would be the first of many late evenings of copy editing, writing, and collaborating. The group in question was the 136 Lawrence Board. The new board, announced just before finals, released their first issue last Friday. Vinh had the opportunity to interview the new editor-in-chief of the Lawrence, Michael Zhao.
How do you feel about taking on such an important role in the newspaper?
I'm really excited. It's something that I've wanted to do since freshman year, probably. Not necessarily becoming editor-in-chief, but I've always wanted to take a really active role in the newspaper. I've always really believed in what the Lawrence has stood for, what it can do for the community, and I'm just really excited about this opportunity.
So, what do you think makes the new board special and unique from the last board?
I think not only does everyone on this board have already a lot of experience with journalism, I think the people on this board have shown a lot of initiative already. They all are really passionate about what they do. Actually, over spring break, just a few days before school started, we went up to Columbia University to attend the Columbia Scholastic Press Association's spring convention, a journalism conference. And when I first approached the board about the idea, I was a little hesitant. It was a little expensive. I wasn't sure how many people would be interested, but people were immediately reached out, expressed interest, and we got, I think, 9 people on our board to go. We got some really good formal journalism practice. We learned a lot from professional journalists, faculty advisors at top high school newspapers around the country. So I think that gave us some really good experience heading into our first issue. It made us pretty well prepared, I think, to tackle the rest of this year. But I think that passion for journalism in this board is really awesome.
Thank you, Vinh. Yesterday was the first of 3 revisit days here on campus. Matt McChesney brings us that story.
Thanks, Ghael. Today, 80 Prospect Lawrenceville students and their families visited the campus. They toured with students, got to look inside the classrooms, watched the KSC lecture, and watched some performances in the Abbott Dining Hall. I had a chance to meet with Tom Shepard, Dean of Admissions, and ask him about what Revisit Day is about.
Well, I get the great pleasure of overseeing an admission process that involves 2,100 applicants, but most importantly is run by 19 really talented faculty and staff who bring in each class of new students, new Laurentians, that make this place what it is.
Now, you mentioned 2,100 applicants. What's it like balancing all those applicants?
It takes some great people, it takes some great processes, and it takes some great hardware and software. But if you have the systems in place and you have great people, it all works together and it comes out beautifully.
And what do you look for in these prospects?
Well, we want them to be Laurentians, model Laurentians, right? We want students who can work really hard and get the job done, but we also want students who can contribute to the fabric of life here, because that's really important. So there's a lot that goes into it, and there are a lot of opinions, but that's why we have a series of admission committees who spend 6 weeks debating exactly which students we're going to offer admission to, and everybody has to give a little bit, and we come up with what we think are some great choices.
Thank you, Matt. On Tuesday, the school participated in Flora, Fauna and Food Day. We have our senior arts correspondent, Ciana Montero, with that report.
I'm here with Mr. Kossoff, Lawrenceville's Director of Sustainability. Tell us a little bit about what's going on here today.
So we wanted to get people out of their seats doing something new, and an idea was to expose people to our Big Red Farm and doing something healthy for the farm, healthy for ourselves, and healthy for the environment.
This is Mr. Hughes, Lawrenceville's Director of Experiential Education.
We have one of the most beautiful campuses that I've ever seen, and so many of us don't even get out into this area of the campus, and so we wanted to improve upon the flora, fauna, and food experience of our community. And by us working together today, we have bluebird houses that are going to benefit our food crops, and we're planting trees that's going to provide shade and perches for the bluebirds. It's just sort of all symbiotically tied together. And then to be able to learn and talk amongst each other about what it really means to be in a community with a land and a place and space.
I'm here with Danielle Richardson, the sustainability representative on the Student Council.
As we plant trees, we get a chance to see more about the flora. As we make the birdhouses and invite the bluebirds onto our campus, we get to see the fauna, and with people planting lettuce, we get to be interactive with our food as well.
Maybe this moves into more of an annual event where the whole school comes out here for a day, and before you know it, we have like over 8,000 man hours spending one day out at the Big Red Farm. We can get a lot done and serve the whole community in a great way.
Thank you, Ciana. That's our show for Thursday, March 31st, 2016. From all of us here at L10, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next week. Good night.